Hello, and welcome to a new episode of the Defocus Media podcast. I'm Dr. Jennifer Lyerly, and the dream team is back in action because I am here with none other than Dr. Darryl Glover on this episode.
What's
Darryl,
up?
how
What's
are
up,
you doing?
everyone? I'm doing well, Jen. Thanks again for allowing me to be a part of this amazing series that you have kicked off. You have been having nothing but all stars come on the show to just really dive deep into macular degeneration, geographic atrophy. And today, I know we have an amazing star that's going to add more value to eye care and more value to this conversation as well. So, thanks so much, Jen.
Oh my gosh, this has been such an exciting series. I've learned a ton from our guests, and I have been avidly awaiting our conversation today with Dr. Cecelia Koetting. Dr. Koetting is a renowned speaker and lecturer in optometry, and she just happens to be also my fellow classmate from the Southern College of Optometry. So it's not every day you get to speak with a famous optometrist you also had the luxury of going to school with.
I'm feeling the same way right now. You're pretty well known yourself, both of you.
Dr. Koetting, I'd love to kind of give everybody a lowdown on what you've been up to since we graduated from SEO, because you've had a very exciting career.
Yeah, I've been busy, especially the last couple of years. So after graduating, I went and did my residency in Cincinnati at the VA. And then I worked for a very short stint in Tucson for about a year. And I spent the better part of a decade actually in Virginia at a referral center, Virginia Eye Consultants. And so really worked hand in hand with ophthalmology that entire time, and was focused on disease. So it was, we jokingly call it my 10-year fellowship. So yes, so that was a phenomenal experience. And actually more recently, about 2 years ago, I moved out to Colorado and have joined the University of Colorado School of Medicine, where I'm able to continue my focus in disease. A lot of it being ocular disease, neuro, and as we all do, we wear every hat. So I do get to see a little bit of everything as well.
So are you teaching classes, or what is the position like?
Yeah, so I can. I'm not currently. Hopefully in the future. Previously, I was both extern and resident director at Virginia Eye Consultants, and I'm actually hoping to bring that as an option for a place to foster growth of optometrists at the school. So that's something I'm hoping to do. But the residency program, so the ophthalmology residency program, is actually taught by many of our staff optometrists, which I think is really cool.
That's
Absolutely
awesome.
incredible.
Yes, I know. Yeah.
Well, we are going to get to pick your brain on a topic that's really big in medicine. I know your ophthalmologists that you're working with are having a lot of probably interesting conversations on this new treatment for macular degeneration, geographic atrophy specifically. Yeah. And before we get into the meat of this topic, I'd like to give a big thank you to IZERVAY and Astellas Company for helping support this podcast and make this episode possible. But this is an independent podcast episode. All thoughts and opinions are our own, and all these conversations that we're going to have are completely our opinions on the topic, which makes it really exciting because we've got three very varied perspectives about optometry and geographic atrophy that we're going to bring to you today. So with that being said, we've got this new FDA approval of medications to treat geographic atrophy and dry macular degeneration. What has changed around your patient conversations around dry AMD?
Yeah, so we know with dry AMD, previously our only real treatment was to have a conversation about eat your leafy greens, don't smoke, wear your sunglasses, and look at this fun little grid. And when we got to a certain point, we would start talking about AREDS formula vitamins, all of that. But it was kind of one of those, hey, we're going to handhold you and watch you and kind of refer you if we need to. And with dry AMD, we know that there is the risk that they're either going to turn into geographic atrophy or they may turn into wet macular degeneration. So now knowing that there is a treatment for geographic atrophy that was not there previously, it has changed my conversation to say, hey, I'm, especially those who have what look like more predisposing findings that I think they're going to turn into geographic atrophy of, hey, well, there is a treatment now for dry macular degeneration that turns into geographic atrophy. And if this is something that I see you're leaning towards, I'm going to refer you over to retina for an evaluation so that they can discuss whether or not you are a candidate for one of those treatments.
I love this. It sounds like we have to rewrite the conversation in the exam lane, right? We have to really make sure that we get out of our old ways of how we used to do things and start a new story, start a new conversation, because these patients, they deserve to have the best vision possible. And if there's something that we can do about it as eye care professionals, we're going to change their lives. So I'm super excited about how we're going to rewrite this conversation today.
Right. And it's not even just, you're absolutely correct in that we can help preserve vision. This is not like oh, your vision changed, you need a new change in glasses. This is loss of vision, loss of function, loss of quality of life. And if we can help, and we do that with so many other things, why would we not want to do it with this too?
Yeah, I love that. And Jen, she hit on some buzzwords, quality of life.
Yeah.
Like having that mindset, it changes how you function in the exam lane as well. So, everyone out there, think about quality of life when you see these patients walk through your door.
Absolutely.
I found a big thing that I've been doing differently is really thinking about, previously with macular degeneration, I was like, look for CNV, look for that neo conversion. And then it's like they have it or they don't. And that's your two categories. But I realized like I haven't been looking for geographic atrophy. And to look for it, you have to think differently. And I've had to rewire myself to look for geographic atrophy and really leverage like my fundus autofluorescence photos and thinking about my OCTs in a different way. And so that's been something that's taking like a constant attention on my part to make sure I'm thinking in the right way, because it's kind of new to be having these philosophy changes.
It is. No, absolutely, 100%. And it is obtainable. It is not something that is such a large change in what we're doing that it's not something we can't do, especially as general. I'm not a retina specialist, right? But I'm still looking for these things. You are as well. And that's what I want everybody to really understand, is that this is something we can do. This is absolutely in our wheelhouse to have that easy of a conversation of, I'm going to refer you because there may be a treatment. We don't have to promise. We don't have to get into specifics, but just hand-holding and pivoting and getting them to the right person.
I think we should take a moment just to celebrate, because how amazing is optometry right now? There's so many, so much new technology, so many new treatments, medications that are out there. Like, we're living in probably the best time of optometry or eye care ever. I mean, we have everything at our fingertips to really help those patients in the exam lanes. And every day I go into the clinic, I'm just amazed by what I can do, especially being able to practice full scope optometry as well.
Yes.
Agree.
Yeah.
So what do our patients need to know about treatments like IZERVAY or Syfovre? What are they doing?
Yeah. So when we talk about that, I think it's, again, setting the stage, setting expectation, because patients are going to ask, okay, well, if there's a treatment, what does it do? Even if we aren't really going to get into it, it's good to let them know just the basics, right? So we need to let them know that we're working to preserve the vision that they have, especially if somebody's already started to lose vision. And once somebody's been diagnosed with geographic atrophy, within about 2.5 years or so, we actually start to see average, right? Because everybody's different. But in average, we start to see loss of vision. And that means going down the rabbit hole, right? So we want to let them know that we're working to preserve the vision that they have. Just as we do typically when we talk about macular degeneration, we want to try to keep it from getting worse. We know we don't at this time have a way to reverse it. We don't have a way to improve vision from what's already been lost, but we do want to give them every fighting chance to preserve the vision that they have.
I love that mindset. In my head, I've been trying to think about this just like I talk about glaucoma. Preserve and protect.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to keep the vision that you have for as long as possible and try to slow down any loss that you have in the future. And so we're used to talking. We're used to this conversation. We have this conversation all the time with our patients.
Jen, we need to put that on a shirt. Preserve and protect. That's something we're going to do.
Job.
I love that. I love that.
So obviously, with our patients, the quality of life, the quality of vision. Sometimes they're losing vision in a way that we won't see on a Snellen chart. And so we have to be really paying attention to what our patients are thinking about their daily needs and their daily quality of life. And with that, we have a little commercial that we'd like to run that's really talking about the patient's impact.
Sight. It awakens us to the present moment, guides us through essential daily tasks, shows us the road immediately ahead, and a future we can only hope to witness. Sight gives us hope, but retinal diseases can take our sight away, along with the hope that goes with it. At Iveric Bio, we see a world where vision is preserved. Our mission is to deliver transformational therapies for people with retinal diseases so they can live with hope in sight. The freedom to drive, the ability to work, the comfort of looking into a loved one's eyes, or the simple confidence to knowingly say, I see. Iveric Bio. Hope in sight.
I don't know about you, Jen, but watching that video and listening to that dialogue makes me want to go into the exam room with a cape on and save some lives. You know, I mean, oh my goodness.
I don't think, any doctor needs convincing that this is something we care about. Preserving and protecting our patients' vision is
Yeah.
absolutely why we are optometrists. This
We
is
do what we do.
calling on our heartstrings. But then it becomes like, okay, how do we describe this to our patients in a way that's going to convince them that they also need to prioritize this kind of treatment, seeing how we know that it's not going to make their vision better. And this is a long-term commitment to see results. So do you have any tips for success, Dr. Koetting?
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head when you kind of compared this to glaucoma. This is very similar to how we have the conversations there. It's, hey, I'm seeing something that makes me concerned, right? And we need to do anything we possibly can, because we know that while sure, you may be that one very special person, the unicorn that does not lose vision, right? That's probably not the case. Unfortunately, this is a chronic, long-term, progressive, right? Use the words that you know are going to get your patients to listen, and say that this could cause you to possibly lose vision and or permanently lose all of your central vision. And again, that's going to affect your ability to function and your quality of life and overall your ability to do the things that you like to do. So my job as your doctor is to set you up for the best success that I can, and preserve and protect your vision. So here are the things, the very minimum that we're going to do: your leafy greens, your vitamins, all of these things, right? But we're also going to go talk to a retina specialist so that you can understand whether or not you are at the stage which we need to start to treat, and if you would benefit from a treatment for this.
So study data, when you're looking at the IZERVAY studies, it shows that over that first year, it reduced the progression of geographic atrophy by 35%.
Yeah.
And so the lesions still grow, but obviously at a much slower rate. So
Yeah.
how are we defining success to our patients as far as like what should they expect? Because they may still have some geographic atrophy growth and still some progression to vision changes, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I think that's something in reality, in all honesty, I'm probably not having a discussion with my patients about the functionality of the treatment. I'm probably going to leave that to the retina specialist, but we need to know these things as well, because patients may ask questions and oftentimes they're going to trust us, right? We've had much more chair time with them. We've had possibly years, decades of treating them. And so they trust us. And so they're going to say, well, okay, hey doc, in your opinion, does this work? Is it going to help? Yes, studies are showing in that first year up to 35% reduction in size of the lesion or growth of the lesion, right? And actually, year 2 data just came out showing about 15 to 19% treated at every month or every other month of reduction in lesion size, which, look, hey, you might think those numbers are really low. Is this really worth it? Yes. I mean, if it was me, I want every chance I can possibly get
No doubt
to
about it.
not lose my vision. And I think that's the thing, is we have to put ourselves in our patient's chair and say, well, if it was you, or if this was your mom, that's always a good one, right? If this was your family member or yourself, would you want any extra leg up? I mean, when we talk about eat your leafy greens, don't smoke, wear your sunglasses, wear glasses, what's the percentage improvement or decreased risk for progression there? We're probably talking less than that. So
Oh, yeah.
why would we not have that discussion with these patients and offer this as a potential?
And I think something else that you have to look at is that patients are now very educated when they come into that exam room. So
Yes.
if you're not having this conversation
They're
and they're
going to Google
seeing
it and find out anyway.
things online, commercials, whatever it may be, or one of their friends that have, used this medication or technology that's out there, you're not doing that patient justice. So it's very important to, number one, stay abreast of the technology, but to your point, treat every patient like a significant other, their mother, their loved one, whoever it may be. Because this is a serious issue that we have to make sure that we help our patients, preserve their vision.
Absolutely.
I mean, we clearly have a moral and ethical obligation to make sure our patients are aware this treatment exists and to get them referral to someone who can discuss and, make a decision when to initiate treatment. If you have a patient with geographic atrophy lesion, we know it's most likely to progress and most likely to cause them vision loss. And we would have no worries about recommending the AREDS 2 vitamins for a patient with intermediate dry macular degeneration, even though we know that the reduction in progression is only 21%. Okay. No concerns, no worries. This has higher results, and we're talking about a more devastating form of the disease where there's true vision loss involved. So I think when you're looking at these numbers, we have to think about, we're trying to protect our patients' ability to drive, our patients' ability to read. Yes. Any reduction is a worthwhile cause for discussion.
Yeah, which we can look at other studies that when we lose the independence and we start to lose our ability to do these things, the amount of weight that it holds on your mental health, and then that starts to cause patients' physical health to also deteriorate. So I think it's definitely, it's a big thing.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, everyone wins with this new medication and technology that's out there, right? I mean, think about it. Number one, the patient wins. You preserve and protect their vision, right? But number two, the OD wins because you're building that trust and that loyalty to the practice. But number three, think about the relationship we're going to start to develop with our ophthalmologists, right? I mean, this is something that's cutting edge technology that's coming out of medication. And just think about the continuous communication and dialogue that we're going to have with these ophthalmologists that are going to be performing these treatments. So it's just a win-win situation all around, from the patient standpoint to the physician standpoint, for eye care in general.
Yeah. And I think you bringing up the ophthalmologist and building that relationship is a really good point. You heard my story. My entire career has been side by side with ophthalmology, and I have been very lucky to pick their brains for many years. But I want optometry to understand.
That's another podcast that we have to bring you on and just download everything that's in there and see what those conversations were really like.
Oh my goodness. But don't be afraid of referral, especially to retina. I know that it can be one of those things where it's like, well, I mean, am I seeing that? Or maybe I don't need to refer, or man, what if I refer this and they look at it and they're like, that's not what I would call that, or they're not going to think you're dumb. And to be frank, even if they do, it doesn't matter, because you're not there for their opinion. You're there to get them to somebody who's a specialist. You are not, and that's okay. If you call a lesion the wrong size, the wrong word, you say it's something else, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. We're there to send it to somebody who is able to help us differentiate. On the back end, then look at the notes and then kind of take things into your brain and go, oh, okay, maybe that's what that is next time, right? But I think it's definitely, I don't want people to be afraid to refer and be wrong.
Yeah, look, I'm the referral king. I'm gonna give a shout out to my retina specialist, Dr. Bennett over at NC Retina.
We love you,
Anything
Dr.
that I have
Bennett.
a problem with, I'm able to just, shoot an email, shoot a text, and he'll get those patients in right away and see those patients. And it's because of the relationship that we've built over time. And the
Yeah.
thing that I love, to your point, they send notes back. So I'm able to sit back and
You got it.
review everything and see what I did right and wrong. And sometimes I look at it kind of like a game. I'm like, did I get this right? Or do I need to take it back to the
Yes.
wheel's eye? Right. So I love what you stated there. It's very important not to be shy or nervous, because the last thing you want is not to see something and sit on it. And the next year it's 10 times worse.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So, we're talking about these medications. Obviously, there's side effects with any medication that our patient's going to be prescribed or taking. And yes, in our minds, we can be thinking, well, the retina specialist is going to be doing the treatment. They're going to be having these conversations, and I'm sure they will. But you all know that you're going to get the phone call or the email. Oh, I just had my first injection and this is what's going on. And we need to be aware of what the common side effects are. So can you talk about the Gather clinical trial data and what they found were the most common side effects for
Yeah.
MFA?
So I think that thankfully the most common side effects that were found were things that are not going to be too surprising, because most of us have patients that, have had injections for diabetic retinopathy, CME, for wet macular degeneration, right? And so they are the ones that are pretty common with injections in general. So subcon heme at the injection site, pretty unsightly. Obviously, the patient's not going to be real excited about it, but thankfully, we know those are transient. They're going to go away. I think one to also remember is that there is a transient increase in intraocular pressure. So during the study, they found 9% of patients had an increase in intraocular pressure, and that's because they had an injection. It is transient. It's not something that was a continued long-term increase in pressure. But if you have a patient who has glaucoma, that may be something to be aware of. And during times of around when they're getting injections, if they're getting these injections or other injections, maybe you need to alter their glaucoma medications for, the just short-term future of right after injections, just to kind of compensate for that. And then blurred vision at 8% was also one of the common side effects that was there. And again, that typically was something that was transient and may have to do with, remember, these patients getting in something injected into the vitreous, and they're also going to have floaters, which can be sizable and possibly cause some of that blurred vision. Thankfully, on the lower end, and we do talk about this, especially with some of the other information that we've been getting with concern for intraocular inflammation with other injections that have been happening. These are new drugs. They were smaller groups. We may find that other things are going on. These companies are thankfully very, very ear to the ground and very quick to pick up on anything going on, because now we've got a much larger group of people getting injections. And so with any study, you start to find that the replication from study to real life is a little bit different. So they're watching out for those things and trying to keep us aware. So there was small amounts of endophthalmitis, which is a risk with anything penetrating the globe, right? It was 0.05%, so very, very small. Retinal detachment, there was a 0 to 0.7 risk, which with retinal detachment, we've been having lots of conversations about that with other things in the last couple of years. And so these are things that we know. Now, one thing I think that is important to talk about is that their 2-year data coming out did actually show, so there was a concern for CNV or choroidal neovascularization at about 7% during the 1 year in the treatment arm versus the sham group that had about 4%. When we got to the 2-year data, we actually found that they were about the same. So, yeah. So treatment versus no treatment, we were seeing that the risk of choroidal neovascularization or wet AMD was about the same between the two arms. And the company and the theory about that in general is that they're looking at the patients, and they're thinking that there are some patients who are just at a higher risk that they would develop that. They're trying to figure out who that is.
I know before this was available on the market, when that initial study data got reported, and there was that seemingly slightly increased risk of conversion to wet macular degeneration, I think people had a little bit of a pause. But then, Darryl, you might remember we were at SECO, and they had a retina specialist having a conversation around this, and they were like, I'm not worried. I have a treatment for wet macular degeneration. If that develops, I know how to treat it.
We have plenty for that. Yeah.
I was like, okay, if that's how our retina specialists feel, then I guess I shouldn't be worried either. They know what they're
Right.
doing.
I think sometimes us as optometrists, we worry too much, right? I mean, we need to be on point with our game in the exam lane, but you know, sometimes we just gotta do what we need to do. I mean, like Jen, you remember when we were in school, they were like, be careful with steroids. And I mean, how many times a day do you prescribe a freaking steroid, right? Like that's my best friend, right?
Yes.
So be educated, no doubt about that, but also just do what you got to do.
Yep. Well, and that's why the referral's there, right? I mean, we are many hats. We have to know so much about so much. Ophthalmology is very in their own area, and they are specialists in that. And that makes it, that's why we refer out, right? So that somebody else who is able to take the time to be that focused on something and have that full wealth of knowledge is able to make that decision. And that's why they're there.
And you know what else? Whenever you make that referral, the patients look at you as the hero because you're the one that found whatever and guided them in the right path for the right treatment plan as well. So again, we win as optometrists. The patient wins, the ophthalmologist wins. I mean, this is how we rewrite that conversation. Just think about the patient and everything else just goes to where it needs to go. I mean, this is how it works.
Yeah. Let's talk about the ideal patient, because I mean, we're making the decision to refer. So we need to understand which patients are probably going to be our best patients to refer and which patients may not benefit. So who would you consider to be the ideal candidate for that referral for a treatment for geographic atrophy?
So you talked a little bit about imaging. And so obviously all of our offices, our modalities are a little bit different. A lot of the non-mydriatic cameras, the optos, things like that, there is the option for using the FAF, which many people didn't realize are actually things built into stuff they have. But also many of us have OCT. So I would say make sure that you are, kind of brushing up on your skills of things that you're looking for with those. And if you have the ability, if you do see that somebody is starting to develop geographic atrophy at any level, refer it. It doesn't matter. You've already identified that the patient has gotten there. Now, if you're looking at somebody who has the risk, you've got the fluffy confluent drusen and RPE clumping. Those are people who are more likely to develop geographic atrophy. And I would still say refer it. Because again, like I was saying, retina is not going to look at you and be like, hey, why'd you send this patient? Or they might, and it doesn't actually matter. But the point is that I'm referring it for them to make the decision. And so I have a fairly, and this is my personal, right? I have a fairly low threshold. And I know that retina is still trying to figure out who they're going to treat and who they're not going to treat, but I at least want them to start the conversation and meet with them so that if and when, even if they're not going to do it then, if they're going to watch it, that's fine. But I want them to get them on treatment as soon as possible, because we know that if I'm waiting for the change in vision or the start to have loss of vision, I'm already behind the curve. And I don't want to do that to my patient. Again, going back to the what would I want, what I would want for my family members.
I'm totally on board. This is how I've said it in my mind too. Like, if I see any geographic atrophy, small, extrafoveal, I don't care. That person needs the referral. It's only going to progress and get bigger, most likely. And hopefully these are patients with very good vision. Maybe they don't even have any visual complaints yet. Perfect. That is the time to consider starting treatment, because I don't want to wait until you already have lost vision. I can't get that back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Darryl, what's your method?
Preserve and protect. That's all I got to say.
Yes, I like it. Yes, put that on a t-shirt. I like that idea.
Is there anybody who you would consider not a good patient or who would be contraindicated based on the study data?
So contraindications, I mean, people who have active intraocular inflammation, we know that they've already got some mediators that are probably releasing. And when we talk about that, we're talking about our uveitis, iritis patients. But even then, that's probably, like you said, that your retina's doctor was talking about, hey, I'm not worried. I'm going to treat them with this if that's a problem with CNV. That may be something that maybe they feel a little bit differently about. And so I'm still going to refer them. I'm just going to say, hey, they may just, maybe tag on to that and say, hey, because of other things going on, they may decide not to treat you. And that's okay. I already know that. But my job, again, is to get you to the person who, if we can do a treatment, will be able to do a treatment. And they're going to be able to better make that decision than I am.
And I think really with any of these patients, most likely as an optometrist, we're going to make the referral to the retina specialist. But something that comes to mind is a patient with severe vision loss in both eyes, huge central geographic atrophy patches where they're like no central vision left. That's a low vision referral, unfortunately. Like they're going to need something different. Obviously, being under a retina specialist care is still a great idea for that patient, and I'm sure I'm still going to have the referral in that case. But most likely, they're not going to be a great candidate for this particular treatment. They cannot restore their vision. If they already have 2 massive lesions, there's not much left to preserve and protect. But on the other hand, a patient with one eye with relatively small lesion and the other eye with severe vision loss, great a patient because they've already lost the vision in one eye. We want to do anything to save the vision that they have in the other. So that is an ideal candidate.
Yeah. No, and I think you hit 2 things that I love. Low vision. Don't forget about low vision, everyone. Okay. Even if they have lost all their vision, or that they're at a high risk, I will preemptively send some of my patients who even aren't at a severe vision loss, but at a mild to moderate. I have a 2050 patient who I sent this week to low vision just because I know they've got a chronic progressive problem. And unfortunately, I see them going the other direction. And I want to give my patient hope because that helps keep them in a spot where they understand, hey, we can pivot and we're going to pivot together and we're going to get you there and you will be okay, even if we continue to lose vision. We want to give them hope.
Yeah, I love that. Hope and sight, no doubt about it. And Jen, that was a huge call out with the first case scenario that you gave. Don't tell people a dream, right?
Yep.
Just because there's new treatment options out there doesn't mean every patient that comes in with geographic atrophy that you just say, okay, we're going to send you here and these people are going to save your vision. Again, protect, preserve, right? We got to make sure we're using the right words and having the right dialogue. We do not want to, tell patients something that's not going to truly happen. We don't want to sell them a dream. We want to be realistic with our patients when they come into our doors.
Yeah. Well, and I think anybody who's practiced a specialty version of eye care will sometimes get those referrals where a patient's really excited. They think you're going to really be able to do a lot. I had a patient with foveal scarring that got referred for scleral lenses the other day. And yes, it did not help. He did not see any better. And it's heartbreaking because they had such high hopes and then they were crushed. And it was very unlikely that scleral lenses were going to give them any better. But I understand, we wanted to try anything that we could. But yeah, so we have to be careful about not over promising on what technology can do and really understand what this technology is capable of before we're making the referrals.
But Jen, also give yourself a pat on the back. That shows how great of an optometrist you are, right? People know you save eyes, you save lives, you do the damn thing, right? So they're sending the patients over to you because you make miracles happen, my friend.
Yes.
I am not a superhero.
Yes, you are.
Super Jen.
I've got one other category that we want to talk about. And again, we're going to be making this referral regardless, I think, but something that we need to keep in mind. This is a monthly treatment that patients need a long-term commitment to. And think about our dry eye patients, even for an example. We've got patients with chronic dry eye that cannot commit to using their prescription eye drops.
Can I get you to brush your teeth? How about that? Start there.
Right. These patients need to be committed to, I will need to go in for my regular injections regularly. Otherwise, 1 or 2 injections, that's not the treatment. That's not going to get results. So kind of setting that stage up front where it is normal for your doctor to now be seeing you every single month to do this treatment.
That is a fantastic point. And I think that is actually really important to set the stage before they go for the referral, that is a very high likelihood and for them to be prepared for that. Yeah. That's a really good point.
That's a difficult conversation to have, right? Because when you tell them they're going to have so many potential injections, they may be like, I don't know if I want that. So it's like that's that gray area, It's going to be interesting. I guess it's going to be trial and error with having those conversations.
Yeah.
You
Do
know?
you guys have that conversation when you refer your macular degeneration patients?
You know what? This is a great example because I think I have always been concerned that sometimes patients ask me like,
You don't
"Oh,
want
when
to
are
put
you
them
gonna
off,
do
right?
it?"
You don't want them
Right?
to
Where it's
not
like,
go
I
to the
want to scare them
referral.
into not
Yeah.
going when I tell them that they're going to need injections into their eyeball on a regular basis. I'm afraid they'll be so scared they don't even show up for the first appointment.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's right or wrong. And I'm very open-minded to learning from my peers because I want my patients to be prepared, but I also want them to make it to appointment 1.
I think sometimes it's reading the room. You got to look at the patient as a patient. It's a person. We're all different. Some people are going to take that. I mean, to be honest, it's like talking about Demodex, right?
Yeah.
Am I going to call it a mite, or am I going to say, hey, you've got an overgrowth of bacteria with another issue? So I think that there's definitely times where I'm just flat out with my patients. Most of the time I am anyway. And it's hey, you're going to go talk to the retina specialist, and there's a high likelihood they're going to do a treatment. That treatment may be an injection, and just leave it at that. But if a patient I already know and I've had other conversations with about other treatments, I'm like, I do not want to go down that road because I know that it was hard to get them in the chair today. There's no way they're going to go for that. I may use a little bit more of, hey, this is chronic progressive. You could completely lose your central vision, and just leave it there and move it over to retina, just because I really don't want to dissuade my patient from getting the help that they need.
Yeah. And you hit the nail on the head. I mean, knowing who's sitting in front of you, understanding your patient, how do they think, how do they move, how can you convey that message? I think that's key. But I think also the other big piece is being educated about this topic, right? And at
Being able
Defocus
to answer
Media,
those questions.
yeah, we've had a lot of great podcasts. We got this amazing series where we've partnered with IZERVAY Bio to talk about how to rewrite that conversation, to talk about partnerships with ophthalmologists, to talk about all these different topics to help you as an optometrist to excel in that exam lane. So I encourage all my colleagues out there, go back and listen to the wonderful gems of Dr. Mark Dunbar and some others, and Dr. Jennifer Lyerly, because it will really help to elevate that conversation in that exam room when you feel educated about the topic rather than just kind of freestyling it. And let's be honest. I mean, I'll be honest. I've been freestyling this conversation more because I'm not that educated about it. I don't have a lot of patients that come into my practice that may be a candidate for this medication, but it's one of those things that, we got to start being educated about it.
Yeah. America's aging. Optometrists are all going to be geriatric optometrists. We have to care for our geriatric patients. And there are way more patients in your chair with geographic atrophy than you realize, because once you start looking for it, those little things you thought were drusen clumps they're not drusen, they're geographic atrophy, which I have been realizing this year as I leverage my fundus autofluorescence photography to its capabilities. And so if you don't think you have these patients, I encourage you to look a different way and you will surprise yourself. Thank you guys so much for your time today. This has been such a fun conversation, and I know everybody's learned so much listening to us, but I think what this conversation has also made very clear is that this is new. There's a lot for us to learn and discover along the way, and how to best communicate to our patients is going to be kind of a changing path forward as we learn what our patients respond to best and the best ways that other doctors in the area are having success. So I think we're going to keep having these conversations so we get better and better at it, just like any other medical condition we're treating in optometry.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Jen. It's been fantastic. I've learned so much. Again, continue the great work, and let's tackle geographic atrophy together as a team, as an industry, as a profession. We can change the narrative, and it starts with us, because they're going to come see us first before they see that ophthalmologist.
And Dr. Koetting, would you mind sharing where other optometrists can follow you with your social media handles? Because I know you have an active platform.
So I am on LinkedIn, so happy to friend people on LinkedIn, of course. And then you can also follow me on Instagram, Dr. Jazz Hands, as I travel all the time across the country and make you guys guess where I'm going next.
You live vicariously by following these two, where they're traveling from your own home, and see all the world together, and see the bright horizons that optometry has, depending on the path you take. You never know where this career is going to take you very clearly.
It's so fun.
Awesome.
I'll have a wonderful rest of your day. And thanks again for tuning in to this episode. We can't wait to see you back on the next episode.
All right. Have a great one.
Bye.
All right, colleagues, and it's a wrap. Thank you dearly for hanging out with the Defocus Media team. We hope truly something resonated with you. And until next time, be sure to keep it 2020, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.